Welcome to the Real Estate Majlis podcast, where we'll delve into the latest real estate insights and trends. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a first-time buyer, our podcast is here to provide valuable information and expert advice. This episode is powered by Bayut, the leading property platform in the UAE and proud member of the Dubizo Group. Whether you're buying, selling, or renting, Bayut connects you with real estate options that meet your needs using innovative tools like TrueCheck and Bayut GPT. Whether you're looking for a new home or a reliable platform to advertise your listings, choose Bayut, where you'll find real photos, real prices, and real properties. So welcome to a new episode of the Real Estate Majlis podcast. Today we have an amazing guest, Amira Sajwani, Managing Director of DAMAC Properties. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Mahmoud, exciting, huh?
Very exciting.
First developer we have in the show. So we have pretty tough questions to ask, yeah?
Yeah, and Amira is a person that we've been in touch with and we know very much. She's involved in real estate side as a developer, but also she's very well known now recently in the Proptech domain, which we have a few questions on that as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy
so
to
technology,
answer.
Real estate, sustainability, there's so many questions. We're going to flood you with the questions.
I'm excited.
So when you think about post-pandemic, we've seen a huge surge of lots of new developers. And I think a lot of buyers are a bit confused to who to invest with, a lot of offering, a lot of shining brochures coming out. And I think a lot of the customers, especially from overseas, they don't understand how detailed a developer requires in terms of documentation, paperwork, planning, regulation, escrow, things that have evolved over the past few years. So from your point of view, what buyers, when they're looking to invest off plan, they should consider?
That's a great question, because definitely post-pandemic, there's been so many new developers. I think from a government standpoint, they've done a phenomenal job in making sure that the regulations are, let's say, tough enough for you to be able to enter. However, I still think it's very important for a client to look at that developer's track record. Has he delivered anything in the past? Was the project that he was delivered on time, on quality? What are the client's reviews? Because I think what's happening right now is the amount of new developers that entered into the market post the pandemic has been quite large, but none of them have actually delivered anything yet, which is fine. Most of them will deliver, they'll deliver well. But you'll always have those, the bracket that probably will be quite delayed, that won't deliver the quality that's presented on the brochure. Not because they don't want to, but they just don't have the experience in doing so. And I think a lot of people think, I'm going to buy a plot of land, I'm going to hire a contractor, and I'm going to put up a project in 2, 3, 4 years. And it's not as simple as that. So I think it's very important for clients to see, who is this developer? What has he done in the past? Has he done anything in real estate? Has he delivered a project, whether globally or locally? Has he actually had some track record that they can bank on? I think that's very important, because I think today developers come out and, including us, and we have new and shiny and brochures, like you said, with great images, but has anybody actually delivered that? I think that's very important. When you look at the big developers in town, of course, they have a big track record across all of them. But the new ones, I think a client should do a bit more homework before diving into a new developer.
So on the same issue, Amira, on the off-plan, we've seen a certain stage in the real estate market where people kind of were hesitant to invest in off-plan and they preferred the ready, but all of a sudden things change. Do you think currently, given all the regulations and laws and data and transparency, do you think investors are fully protected when they buy off-plan as opposed to 10, 15 years ago?
100%. I think as opposed to 10, 15 years ago, today off-plan buyers are fully protected. The sales purchase agreements have become a lot more detailed and stricter in terms of even the regulations that the land department applies, even in terms of having certain delays, milestones, being able to pay according to construction that's by the surveyor, by the land department. I think these are very important points that came in to kind of protect the buyers locally and globally. And in addition to that, I think the market has also shifted to off-plan because the demand that has come in has been so strong over the last few years. And a lot of people who come in, they want something new. And so they want something that's maybe of a higher standard, because I think what happened is over the last 5 years, Dubai's, let's say, demand of portfolio has moved into a higher luxury segment, which we hadn't catered to in the past, which is fine. But then that means that if you're looking for a ready property, there's nothing available because there's nothing off that standard, or very few projects off that standard that have already applied. Buyers who've bought 10 years ago have applied a massive premium. So a client that comes in today, he thinks, I'd rather buy off-plan at a higher standard and just wait for the delivery. And I think that's a major shift into the off-plan market.
It's true. But you're talking about the sales and purchase agreement. Do you worry that a lot of buyers come into the off-plan market with the view of selling after the second, the third installment, considering today the regulation when it comes to cancellation is quite good from the developer point of view, depending on at what stage the development is. So people will lose their deposits or the down payments, or even further, depending on what stage the construction is. But do you have a concern people are still buying with the mentality to flip, or you see people carrying on until completion?
That's a great question. I think there will definitely always be that segment that's buying to flip. However, I think it depends on what the developer does to protect themselves and the buyer, to be honest, from that. So us at DAMAC, for example, what we do is we do not transact a property if it's less than a 20% plus the 4% DLD registration fees. I think that makes it a bit more difficult for speculators and buyers who just want to come and flip within 6 months to get in. Then what most big developers, including us, are doing is a buyer cannot sell his property before he pays the 34% milestone payment. Again, that makes it a little more difficult to kind of flip, because a client who comes in will think, okay, should I go with the developer and pay a lower down payment, or should I go with the secondary off-plan purchase and pay a higher down payment? Now, the point of that is not to make it more difficult for the buyer to sell. It's just to protect us and the buyer from speculation. We want buyers who can at least hit a certain milestone before having to sell, to make sure that they can afford to buy a property.
Yeah, of course.
Because what we don't want happening is buyers who can't afford properties to be coming and buying and buying and buying, and then realizing,
over-leveraging.
I've over-leveraged, I can't buy, I'm going to lose my down payment. That's not what we want. I think that's not healthy for us or for the market. It's not healthy for reputation, whether it's developer or as a city. So I think it's important to kind of make sure that a buyer is able to actually go through with the purchase that he's putting his savings into.
And you think brokers, they tend to push buyers to say, buy, I'll sell it for you. And,
at home, when my parents are having a fight, we say as kids, we don't interfere in politics. So I'm in that position here right now to say I don't interfere in politics. But I think there are brokers who can really push buyers a bit too much and convince them that they can afford a property that they might not be able to afford.
Correct.
They have I've seen these odd formulas where on a piece of paper he's shown him, this is the down payment and this is the mortgage that you'll take at completion, and this is the equity release on your current portfolio and your car loan and you get a credit card loan and your kids' school fees and tabby. And I'm like, guys, if it has to be this complicated, you should not be buying this.
So they came to buy a studio and walked away with a 5-bedroom.
I swear, it's like
or penthouse.
I have 2 young kids, and I tell my nannies, I tell my cook, I say, if my kids are eating something where you don't understand what the ingredients are, it doesn't go into their mouths. Like, I think it's as simple as that. If it needs to be complicated, you shouldn't be doing it. And unfortunately, today there are people who kind of push buyers into that, but the brokerage market today is massive.
Yes.
So it's very hard to control that.
Absolutely,
quality.
And it's like around the world. It's not a UAE problem.
If we look at the trends currently, trends of buyers, behavior of buyers, what kind of trends you see in terms of buying behavior? Who's buying? Where? What's their preference? Do we really provide that product for them here in Dubai?
That's a great question, because if you asked me that 5 years ago, we had our top 5 buyers were always similar nationality, shuffling between, which was like Indian, Pakistani, Arab region, Saudi, Emirati, etc. Today, month on month, I see a different trend of buyers. We've had an incredible amount of European buyers, a lot of British buyers, German buyers. We've had the US buyers. We've had buyers from Australia and Japan. So I think the mix has become very diverse, which is amazing. It's amazing to see that people who are sitting around the world are believing in Dubai's story. We have a purely online team as well. So we have a team that sells purely online, and we're seeing people from global markets transact. And that's been incredible. We started that team during COVID thinking, okay, people who are not able to make it to the office, etc. And we've seen a growth in that. And it's amazing to see people globally buying. So the trends have definitely shifted nationality-wise to be very diverse. When it comes to product, of course, right after COVID and I think last year as well, we saw huge demand for the luxury market. I think that has kind of stabilized now. And I think let's say, demand has come back into that middle segment of that 2 to 6 million buyer who wants a comfortable house, end user product, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartment, townhouse, as well as, of course, the trend for those smaller units is always there. I think that never goes away. The studio up to 1-bedroom, 500,000 to 2 million dirhams, that's always there. But we're seeing a very strong demand in the middle segment. And that's great. That's where I think Dubai really wants to be, so that it can cater to everybody.
But that's a super important point, because you were saying earlier that there's been a shift, I think, across developers to focusing on the luxury side of the market. What about the entry? Because price has gone up to a certain extent that you rarely find properties under 1 million dirhams. And there is a lot of people saying, help, can you give a long-term payment plan? Which I know there's a cost for the developer to do that. It's not as simple as that. But equally, people they don't want to pay the rent, but they equally don't have the 10%, the 20% down to start. So why developers are shying away from catering that segment?
See, that's a great question. I don't think developers are shying away. I think what's happened in the market that people don't really kind of comprehend is that land prices have gone up significantly, which is normal because Dubai grew incredibly. And construction price has gone up significantly because of inflation globally, as well as supply and demand. There's a limited number of contractors in town, and amount of projects outweigh the number of contractors. So of course, they're putting their premium on contracting as well. So I think the unit economics for the developer have changed so much that even when we buy something that is, in the past we could have afforded to have at a lower benchmark, today because of the cost going up 30, 40%, it's very difficult. But saying that, I think there are a lot of projects that are still catering to that band. We recently launched our project in DAMAC Hills 2. It was incredibly successful. We had studios and 1-bed starting at 550,000 dirhams. On the day of the launch, we had 3x the demand of the amount of units. So we immediately launched another building, and within 2 weeks, another building. And we sold out across. In the beginning of the year, we had our lagoons buildings, and I had released thinking I'm going to release 2 buildings at a time. And each building had around 60 units. I had 2,850 EOIs. We got banned from the hotel that was catering our booking event because we created so much traffic in the area that they banned all developer events from then on. And so on that day, I ended up selling 18 buildings in 2 hours. 18 buildings. And there were 1,450 units we sold on the day. But I had still demand for 1,000 units additional that I couldn't settle. So definitely there is a gap, and not a gap, but there's higher demand in that segment. But I think it's very difficult for people to cater there because it's the big developers who maybe have land bank that we've bought years ago at a more reasonable price
that you can,
like we can still afford to keep in that price range. But people who are buying today, land price has gone up, which is good. It's healthy for the market. But construction has also gone up. And I think the issue is today people also want something new and shiny and single loaded on Park View, 550,000 dirhams within a 15-minute radius of Dubai Mall. But I think Dubai has become an incredible story. And I think in the next few years, it will continue to grow outward. And the living standard of the people who are in, let's say, the center of town will become cities like Hong Kong, New York, London, where, the zone 1 is for people who can really afford it. And, the second outer zone, which in Dubai, we're lucky enough to say that's just a 20-minute drive.
Exactly.
It's not a 1-hour drive, But I think people still have that mindset of, I need to be living in downtown Dubai, but I want something affordable.
Sure.
So I think that needs to kind of come to a middle ground compromise where people realize, okay, I want something affordable, but I don't need to be 15 minutes from Dubai Mall, or 15 minutes from Trade Center, or, it's okay to go 10 minutes outside. And there's projects in the Dubai land area and the JVC area that are beautiful, and they're catering for that bandwidth. But I think people need to still get over that, that pickiness of, I want to be in distance, something new, something great, something long payment plan. I think today it's more of a seller's market. But over the last 2-3 months, it's kind of come in the middle, where it's like, it's not a buyer's market that it was 5 years ago. It's not a seller's market that it was a year and a half ago. Today, it's somewhere in the middle, where there are the right products at the right prices.
Depends on the
everybody.
communities, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And I think today there's incredible communities coming up one after the other. So I think that will still be great.
So the question that comes now, we're having so many, you said hundreds of developers, hundreds of projects, so with a few contractors in Dubai. So how do we guarantee that all these projects will be completed on time? That's first question. And second, the quality. We see a lot of advertisement on how it looks like, the greenery, and then
The word
some people
luxury
say what
became
we
now
get
everything's luxury.
is not there.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure that what we tell people that we're doing is also reflected in SPA and delivery? That's the second question.
That's a tough one for sure. Let me break down that question. So how we make sure that contractors will be able to cater to everybody? If I'm being totally honest, they won't be able to cater to everybody. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
That's not a fact, but that's my opinion. I think what will happen is contractors will first cater to the big developers, not because they love us more, but because they know they'll be paid on time. They've had a track record. They know payments are not going to be an issue. They'll charge us a bit of a premium that we'll be willing to pay. So I think that's going to happen in terms of contracting. The smaller developers, I'm sure, will find a contractor that will get the job done, but he might not be a well-established contractor, an old contractor, somebody who has as much experience in Dubai. Now, when it comes to quality, I think quality is broken down into 2 layers. One is the contractor's ability to apply it on site, in which case, if you're going with a developer who has the experience, who has a good project team to be able to be on the ground every day and manage the QA, I think that's very important. So I'll give you an example. I was on site for our Lagoons project, which has been an incredible success over the last 2 years. We're on track to deliver our first cluster, Santorini, on time this September, as promised. And me or one of my brothers, we go for a site visit every month, once a month, to see what's going on. And we have a strong project team. We have a project team of more than 100 people. So we go and we're literally walking. And I have, friends and family who've bought in the community. And a couple came with me that day. And they walked in, they go, and I go, I don't like the flooring, change the tiles. I don't like this. Why is there a wall here? Remove this. Because we always do a show villa for each cluster before actually going to production. And I think that's very important. If you have a developer who is passionate, strong CEO or strong owner that's there on the ground, wants to deliver something good, has, growth potential, wants to maintain their reputation, I think that's one. I think having contractors that have experience in Dubai to have the ability to, manage and have the experience to know, okay, we built homes in the past that withstood storms or withstood natural disasters or, had the quality, that's 2. And I think the third thing actually comes down heavily to materials being used. I think developers that actually provide spec sheet and say, these are the materials we will use, I think that gives a lot of clarity because renders can always look like something.
Yeah.
Flooring can look like marble but be porcelain or,
Yes.
look like tile but, not be travertine. So I think that's very important. If you're a client and you ask the developer and say, what is the floor being used? And they don't have an answer, then I would be a bit more skeptical to kind of go ahead with that. Now, they don't need to tell you this is a slab of marble or travertine that I'm going to source from, Italy, and this is the slab size, and this is the, what it's going to happen. But at least the ability to say, yes, we have the experience. This will be wood. This will be timber. This will be porcelain. This will be travertine.
Give the customer an understanding.
Of expectations, I think. The wall, is it going to be, wallpaper, or is it going to be, material? I think just having that little bit of experience, I think it helps with assuring the quality that will be delivered.
And with construction delays, in general, it's rarely, my years, I've seen developers delivering bang on time. I think, a couple of months here and there, I think is acceptable. But there is a whole conversation about oversupply, right? Lots of launches every week. Especially, there seems to be a direction whether the oversupply is more on the apartment side rather on the villa side, and on the townhouse side, we've still got another year to go. What's your view? Because there's a lot of opinions on this.
That's a great question. We talk about that as a family quite a bit as well. In my honest opinion, I don't think there's an oversupply happening right now. Last year, the UAE announced that we had more than 150,000 new residents.
Yeah.
If you put all the projects together, it didn't make up 150,000 units. If you look at this year, And in the next 3 years, we are probably going to be delivering around 15,000 units into the market. And as a developer, we have around a 10 to 15% market share, especially of the units to be delivered of what we announced in the last 2 years. If you look at 15,000 from us and you say even that's 15% market share, which means you'd have 100,000 units coming the next 3 to 4 years, that's not a huge amount. Dubai announced that they had 22,000 new residents in just Q1 of this year.
Correct.
That moved in. You know, I'm part of YPO, Young Presidents Organization. And last year we had 4,400 YPOers globally taking a golden visa. That's a luxury segment because they're going to buy something that's catered to their net worth. Again, there was not 4,400 luxury units above 10 million dirhams announced last year. So I think that when people say oversupply, yes, there was a lot of launches, but relative to the growth of the city, I mean, you can see it. When you're out on the roads, it's packed. You know, when you want to get into a restaurant, it's packed. I don't remember 3, 4, 5 years ago having to book restaurants weeks in advance, not days in advance, you know, and that's amazing. I was in Dubai Mall yesterday with my family, and we thought, okay, it's not going to be as crowded because, you know, people are still, you know, adjusting, etc. Recent holidays, it was packed. It was full. I wanted to enter a store, and it was like, my father looked at me, he goes, it's like fish market, I'm not standing here. And I go, okay, I'll come back later. But I think that, you know, people are here. People are, you know, want a place for their families. So I think even the supply coming in is not going to be enough.
At least for the next 2 years, I think
At
we're
least
okay.
for the next 3 to 4 years, I think there's going to be a good balance.
Okay.
There's going to be a good balance.
Okay, that's Amira Sajwani on. There's been oversupply.
Amira, the question now that comes, the UAE recently hosted COP28. There's a lot of focus on climate change, sustainability, resilience of buildings, in the nature of the last floods that happened, and in the nature of what's going on worldwide. How do you take sustainability and climate change as a risk factor in DAMAC as a developer?
So as DAMAC as a developer, what we do is we have a very strong project team and development team that looks at this at concept stage. So as much as we can engage, well, firstly, there's a minimum kind of lead criteria that we have to abide by, which we're always ahead of. But in general, you know, master plans today, they have a requirement of a minimum amount of open space. That's actually gone up in the last 1 year. That requirement is from the, you know, planning authority of Dubai. And the open space requirement has gone up, which is great because it allows more open space. It allows less density. It also allows more sustainability aspect. In addition to that, today technology is going tenfold ahead. You know, there are materials that are more sustainable. There is 3D printing. There is, you know, home automations that allow for the ACs and the you know, glass in the house to take on less sun, adjust the power efficiency. So there's a lot of things that we look at. We're looking at 3D printing in a very serious way. We're looking at modular home building in a very serious way. We've already started a test beta of, you know, some units in town that we're looking at in terms of actual factory building and installation. So I think a lot of this definitely is moving in the right direction. I think there's a lot that can be done on the sustainability front, and I think that the country is pushing that very hard in terms of actually making initiatives to say you have to abide by this, you have to abide by that, and I think that's great. We're happy to do so, and I know that a lot of other developers are happy to do so as well. And in terms of new build, of course, we are taking into account weather change conditions globally to see, okay, fine, the weather has shifted in terms of, you know, rainfall, etc. in the last few years. How can we now abide for that? You know, Sheikh Hamdan, His Highness, you know, he announced an amazing initiative last year of the 80 billion dirham infrastructure for Dubai. So I think people will follow that as well. And I think you can see that a lot in the new master communities that are coming out.
In terms of innovation, you obviously invested in different businesses, including Proptech, FinTech. I think, tell us a little bit about how does that elevate your customer experience?
I am a huge backer of innovation and technology. In DAMAC, we're trying to apply a lot of that. I've recently launched my own Proptech as well. and we invest in a lot of prop tech, funds and companies and startups to see where we can actually not just help them grow, but where they can help us in terms of offering a better offering for our clients. So I think when people talk about home automation, that's great, but that's now basic. I think most homes have a home automation today. I think taking it to the next level is actually seeing where the consumer can benefit. What are issues that people are having that we can solve? So for me, for example, my prop tech now, we are targeting two products at the moment. One is mortgages, where we can make the mortgage process easier for our clients.
Please, because we're still printing 150 pages of documents just to get a signature, and they call you 3 days late, say that one signature is wrong.
100%. So we're looking at actually digitizing the entire mortgage journey, and we're looking at integrating with different parties so that actually the client can get an immediate pre-approval without needing to go through all of these credit checks, because it also takes time. It takes effort, and it is a headache today, to be very frank. I think there's a lot that can be done in that space. The second thing that we are looking at as a prop tech, which is Pripco, is fractional ownership. I think today and this generation are looking to invest in a big way, and everybody wants exposure into the real estate market. Real estate is the biggest asset class in the entire world.
Correct, yeah.
And today the entry price is quite high.
Yeah.
For a normal person who just has a little bit of savings and wants to put his money somewhere, I think interest rates are tapering off, and they will continue to do so in the next 3 years. And when that happens, your regular individual wants an option where he can put his money and have a good investment, be exposed to the market. So we have just actually gone live with our fractional ownership platform a month ago. We closed our first unit 2 days ago, actually. And we're going to continue to kind of fuel that market to target the retail client that wants to invest in Dubai real estate. So that's on what we're doing actively. What we're doing passively as well is that we're actually looking at what innovation can come in and at concept level. We're looking at how AI can help us with, managing consumer expectations at design level. We're looking at how it can benefit us in efficiency, what materials we can integrate that might be a bit more costly at the start, but that would help the person later in terms of their energy usage. So we're looking at a lot of those factors in terms of both construction build and consumer facing products that can help using technology and innovation. I brought in my whole development department and I said, here's DAL-E, here's Midjourney, here's ChatGPT. I want you to present to me 5 projects that are purely AI driven. And they came and they presented, and of course there was pushback in the beginning. Yes. Of course they didn't want to use it. Yeah. But I'm 29 and I'm their boss. Yeah. So they don't have an option, They had to go home, and it took them a while to kind of learn it, but we're getting there, we're getting there.
But it's an interesting point, because when you talk about off-plan, typically, you sign your contract and then see the developer just a handover, right? And in handover now, I was reading some stats, at least 50% of the people who are end users, they will remove the kitchen, they will completely upgrade the house. Don't you think that those are kind of things that are simple, but developers should give customers the opportunity to put the house to a certain standard level of choosing the finishing and having more options rather than dark and light, or, I know it's not a simple thing, but sure. Don't you foresee?
I think that will come. I think that will be the next stage of, let's say, next level that developers will go to. I think the only reason that developers don't do that today is because it becomes very difficult for the contractor to manage on site.
And cost,
and cost, of course. And a lot of clients are willing to take the cost. They'll say, I want this, but I'll pay for it.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think it's more cost. I think it's more time and effort from contractor. A lot of contractors will refuse to take projects that have 100 different, variations. Yes. But I think that is the next level. I think what will happen is more exclusive projects will start offering that. So for example, actually, I've launched my own, or about to launch my own island project, and that is in the World Islands, and that's a very exclusive project, and that's not DAMAC, that's my own project, Amira Properties, and that's 24 units, very exclusive, starting price 50 million dirhams. Very high-end luxury. And so because it's only 24 units, ultra exclusive, ultra luxury, we're giving the option. So we have 2 facade options for a client to choose. Right. We have 2 interior options for a client to choose. And I have clients who've already come and said, okay, I'll take this villa, but I want to redo the inside according to whatever I want. And we said, of course, no problem. In fact, we'll put you in touch with our interior designers who are, HBA, they're incredible, top 5 in the world. Or you want to have a client who's brought his own interior designer and said, he'll do the whole project. my house. And I've said, yeah, sure, go for it. So I think when it's when smaller, more exclusive projects that are a bit more on the pricier side as well, I think that's very easy to cater to clients' needs. I think when it's a mass development, it becomes very difficult because of the contracting complications that come with it. But I definitely think that's coming because developers will have to find ways to differentiate themselves and to be more innovative. And they will definitely start offering things like this to kind of grab a client off of somebody else.
Okay.
I have a question on branded residence / hotel apartments. Because I think part of what we do here in the Majlis is the awareness part. A lot of people buy things, but they end up, of course, not a lot of them read contracts, as you know. Yeah. So they end up coming and saying, well, I've bought this to live in, but I was told by the developer I cannot use it. This has to be part of a pool or something. So
or
just
the brand
from awareness,
changes as well, yeah.
Yeah, and protection. If I buy a hotel apartment, what does it mean as an investor? If I buy a branded residence, what does it mean? From rights, from duties, from what I expect. So if you can tell us more.
That's a great question. I should have been a bit more technically prepared maybe for this question, but I know the answer regardless. So I think a client should be very wary of what he's signing in terms of the different, let's say, license that his unit will have. So if it is a hotel room, which a lot of developers, including us, have, then he will not be at liberty to live in it. It's a hotel room that will go into a, let's say, rental pool and managed as a hotel. What developers do, including us, is we say, for example, it's a hotel room. You will be given 14 days or 21 days in a year where you can use it, but the rest of the year it's managed at a hotel and you'll get your rental income from the hotel room. So that's a hotel room. A hotel apartment would be similar as well. So a hotel apartment, it depends developer to developer, which is why it's very important for a client to read the contract. A hotel apartment usually is put into a rental pool, and that rental pool is managed as a hotel, and the client gets the rental income. Now, it depends on what the license of the unit is. So, for example, we have a project that's a hotel license, hotel apartments, serviced apartments. However, we're telling a client, you are free to use it as your own end user because it's a serviced apartment, a hotel serviced apartment. You are also free to long lease it, but we have to help you long lease it according to the Ministry of Tourism requirements for that. However, if it is a hotel apartment, usually it is not allowed to short-term lease it. And that's where the confusion comes. You know, a client comes and says, I want to put it in holiday homes or Airbnb. And we say, no, that's not allowed. And that's not allowed because it's a government regulation that, you know, the DTCM, you have a license for serviced hotel apartment where you're not allowed to holiday homes, or it's a residential unit where you're allowed to holiday homes. So I think at the point of sale, it's very important for a client to ask that. And what most big developers are doing today, including us, and I've seen several other contracts in town, is the SPA today says this apartment can be, you know, used for holiday homes. This apartment cannot be used for holiday homes. So I think where the big confusion comes is actually the holiday homes aspect that people ask about. Because end user, most developers will say, even if it's a hotel apartment, you can use it as end user. We're not going to put it in a rental pool, you can use it. But the holiday homes aspect becomes an issue where people say, no, I want to short-term lease it myself. And then that creates a conflict with the holiday or the hotel management that's managing it. So I think that's a very important point to ask in the beginning.
Yeah. And the 5% VAT. They should
the 5% VAT, for sure, for sure.
And sometimes you have things like branding fees you have to pay. And sometimes the brand is not associated forever with the property. So you've seen actually recently some developers changing the brand. And there's not much you can do. So you have, you know, you pay a certain premium and they come with heavy premium branded residences. And now you are with a brand that not necessarily reflects the quality that you maybe bought into as well. So Amira is 100% right. You have to read your sales and purchase agreement to the minute when it comes to branded residence especially.
I think the issue is that people don't read the contracts well enough. And then it's on the developer and the client, I think. On the developer to explain from day one and say, this is what it is. And for the client to actually read. And I know it's cumbersome, you know. I've bought properties, to be honest, where I haven't read the whole purchase agreement because I'm like, it's 25 pages, it's Dubai, I'll be safe, and I just sign. But that's not the right way.
We all done that.
Yeah, you know, that's not the right way. And I think the issue is a lot of times developers, you know, client will come complaining and developer will say, this was in your agreement. And the client gets frustrated and says, no, but that's not right. And the developer goes, but that was in your agreement from day one, you know, you should have kind of been aware of that. So I think the biggest kind of obstacle, or not obstacle, but the educational side is very important. So for us, for example, what we've started doing now, and it's also because, every developer, everyone in town has the same issue. When you have a massive sales team and you have 30,000 agents in town technically representing a developer, not intentionally, but they're not going to always highlight things that they might not know themselves, And of course, 5-6 years ago, we did have issues where, clients would come and say, that's not what I was told. So now what we do is we do a welcome call. So when a client purchases a unit, we call within 48 hours or 1 week. We have a call center that calls and says, hi, how are you? We just want to welcome you to DAMAC. We want to make sure that you know the details of what you've bought. So we just want to confirm you've bought this project, this location, this is your unit number, this is your view, this is the brand or no brand, this is the license type, it's residential or hotel, etc. And the client has to confirm that before we actually execute the unit. And I think that will help a lot in kind of, just from an education point of view, clarifying a few things that we think are critical. So I think more and more this will come in. And I think more and more the market is becoming more educated on what they're buying, to be fair.
Last question for me. You obviously develop not just in the UAE, but in the US, in the UK, and even the Maldives. Different markets, different challenges, different regulations. Do you still think the UAE holds value above and beyond the West?
We've been in many markets. So we're in the UAE, we were in Jordan, Qatar, Saudi, Lebanon. We delivered our project in London, one of the highest towers in central London. We're about to launch our project in Miami. We will be coming up with master plans in other cities as well globally. But Dubai is unique. Dubai is unbelievably unique because I think that there's so much effort in Dubai to make things seamless. It's just easy. It's just, in Dubai, to purchase a property is one a signature on a piece of paper, gets registered in land department, and you're an owner. You're an owner. Other countries globally, not the ones that we've, done projects in, but globally, you have to have a lawyer involved, and it's a 60-day, 80-day, 90-day process, and there's, escrows in the middle, and it's quite a complex project that maybe...
And it's scary as well.
It's scary, It intimidates people. If you're buying a unit, and we've invested in multiple cities globally, and it's a process where you need a lawyer. I think Dubai has put incredible effort in making the process so easy, so friendly. You can walk into land departments and say, I'm buying a unit, I need some help, and there will be an army of people ready to help you. You can call and say, I'm buying a unit in Dubai, is this true? And a person from a government authority will verify for you and be friendly and tell you, yes, this is what it is, let me explain to you. I think that makes a huge difference. I don't think anywhere globally the amount of people that invest so quickly like in Dubai. Because I think a buyer comes to Dubai and asks a few people who've invested and understands the process and goes, this is easy, And I think that's helped fuel Dubai's growth immensely. I think the leadership that has been dominoed from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid and his leaders under him has been incredible. I don't think I have personally seen... I have never admired a leader more than I have admired His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, and His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, and just the entire leadership of the UAE and what they've done. They've created an infrastructure for people to come and admire the country.
I agree. Mahmoud.
Final question. I don't want to name how many kind of advices you want to give, but if you want to give an advice to investors, what can be this advice?
I would give the same advice that I give very close friends that call me. I have close friends that call me all the time and say, I want to buy a property. What should I buy? And I always tell them, I go, don't ask me what you should buy. Tell me what you're looking for first. And they go, I don't know. There's so many projects. And I say, forget the projects. What do you want? Are you buying for investing, or are you buying as an end user? Are you going to live in it? Are you going to rent it out? If you're going to live in it, where is your center of life? What is your budget? Are you going to take a mortgage? Are you going to be eligible for a mortgage? If you're going to take a mortgage, check your eligibility from now so that you know what budget you're into.
Before,
And make sure that you have a 10 to 15% buffer for the valuation not coming out to be the same as what the sale price is.
Especially now.
I'm like, can you afford the interest rate payments? How much from your salary do you want to be paying monthly? So I think my advice for a buyer is that you are an individual that is unique to everybody around you. Yes. Don't take your advice of, oh, my friend bought this, I'm going to buy this. Or
Yes.
my father advised me to buy this, I'm going to buy this. My brother is going and doing this, I'm going to do this. I think everybody's very different situation, very unique situation to their needs. If you're buying something purely for investment, great. But look at it. Are you going to take a mortgage? Is your rent going to be higher than your mortgage?
Yep.
What are the service charges of that property?
Yep.
Are you going to be net positive or negative? So I think what I always tell my close friends is I say, make a list of your requirements and send them to me. So what I would say to investors, make a list of your requirements and either go to a developer that you've decided on or go to a good, trustworthy, high-rated broker and say, these are my requirements. This is what I want. I want to be making 20,000 dirhams a year, or I want to be paying 50,000 a year, or I have full cash up front, but this is what I want in terms of a return. And let somebody guide you based on that. But I would not advise for somebody to say, oh, I've been seeing this property in the media, or I've been, that came up on social, that's beautiful, this is what I want to buy. I think put down on a piece of paper exactly what you can afford, or if you're an end user where you want to be, what you can be able to, be paying for. Always look at what are, the extra charges that are not upfront today, but at point of delivery, and then make a decision. And I think for mortgage buyers, very important, check your eligibility, check what the valuation, gap might be, and then make an informed decision.
People should take their time, Unfortunately, in the current market, people get pressure to come and put the down payment. Otherwise, there will be no other property in the, there's lots of launches happening.
I think it's okay for people to be in a pinch of hurry, but I think it's very important for a person to get somebody who's advising them who knows the market. I think that's most important,
And doesn't have conflict of interest.
And doesn't
to
have
push you
conflict
towards
of
certain
interest.
projects.
Yeah. And naturally people are more biased to certain projects.
Of course,
That's natural, people know a certain project more than another. And me, myself, I had a friend call me the other day and say, this project is being launched in this area. What do you think? And I literally said, I don't know the project. And it was a big project, but I just didn't know because of the volume of launches that's happening, I was like, I don't know, let me check for you. And I called 2-3 brokers and I got different answers because of their educational level in that area, which is normal.
Yes.
So another thing I would say is that when you've decided on an area you want to invest in, look at an area expert in that area. I think that would be helpful.
Amazing. Amira, thank you so much for joining us today. It was super interesting. I think a lot of the public would love to hear some of this advice.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you. I'm Amira Sajwani and I'm excited to be on the Real Estate Majlis.
Thank you.
Thank you.